Greetings, everyone. Hope all of you are having an absolutely fantastic day. My review of Dragon Age the Veilguard has finally come out. I gotta admit, my hand was shaking a little bit when I pressed that publish button. There's been a lot of energy swirling around this title, and I wasn't sure how my review would be received, but it seems like the vast majority of you feel like I did a good job and walked through the game well. I talked about some controversial topics and tried to do that in as respectful a way as I could, while also making it clear I disagreed with how BioWare chose to handle them. And once again, it seems like the majority of you saw that I was trying to come from a good place. Really happy with the reception thus far to the review. I'll leave a link down below in the description in case any of you haven't seen it. There is one thing I said in my review that I've seen multiple comments on, and so I feel like I should make a separate video kind of walking you all through more of my thinking. I said towards the end of my Veilguard review that I enjoyed my first playthrough of the game more than my first playthrough of Dragon Age 2. And concerning the long list of dislikes or neutral topics that kind of lean more into the dislikes that are contained in that video, I can see why some people would say, hey, how could you have possibly enjoyed Veilguard more than you enjoyed Dragon Age 2? So let me go ahead and walk you through that thinking so you understand where I'm coming from. To make it clear, I'm not trying to say that I believe Veilguard is a better game than Dragon Age 2. I mentioned before that I do plan to rank all the games in the Dragon Age series, and that's when I'll be able to really take a step back and try to pull each game apart and see where I feel like all of them do better or worse. But I will say, in the lead up to Veilguard, BioWare did a much better job of managing my expectations. When Dragon Age 2 came out, I was obviously a huge fan of Origins. And so while I was looking forward to playing as Hawk and exploring the free marches and all of that good stuff, what I really was looking forward to was a proper end to Origins, specifically for those characters who romance Morgan. My playthrough ended with me wearing Morgan's ring and walking through an Alluvian with her along with my child. And there's a lot of ambiguity about what happens to your character after that occurs. And so I thought, hey, Dragon Age 2 is finally going to give me some answers about what's going on with my character, what Morgan is doing, and what is happening with the old god baby. So when I came into my playthrough of Dragon Age 2, that really was what was most important to me, a proper follow-up to that story that was kind of left hanging. Dragon Age 2 never provides that. Just all the way around, Dragon Age 2, I feel like, does a worse job of considering your past decisions than Inquisition does. And I wasn't prepared for that the first time I played it, so I was very disappointed. I was also, as I'm sure many of you were, very disappointed and how recycled the environments are. Now, ironically, Veilguard also has this issue where you're going through the same environments over and over again. The difference is, in Veilguard, the art is absolutely amazing, and just about everywhere you walk around looks incredible. So even though it absolutely gets old walking through the same environments again and again, I find it easier to deal with. Whereas in Dragon Age 2, the details in the art are really cool, like the statues and some of the unique symbols that you see. But the art in and of itself is just all right to me. So it's not nearly as fun to visit the same underground cave over and over again. And absolutely, it got old. I was very disappointed in the experience. I did not expect it to be bad in that way, considering what we got in Origins. And so I found it a lot more difficult to look past it. I also was very disappointed in the third act of Dragon Age 2. I felt like there should have been a third option to say both the Templars and the Mages were wrong. I was not a big fan at all of how they changed Anders and made him so much more bitter than he used to be before. And I also wasn't a big fan of him unwittingly pulling you into his scheme to blow up the Chantry. I felt like that was such a underhanded thing for him to do. And just all the way around, those of you who looked at my video ranking all of the party members in Origins, you know that I ranked Anders very, very high. I absolutely loved running around with him. And I just did not appreciate the way they completely changed him in the follow-up. And so all of that together really harmed my experience with Dragon Age 2. And then of course you compare that with Veilguard, which, as I mentioned in my review, ends on an extremely high note. The last 5 hours of the game are pretty obviously the best content in the entire game and some of the best Dragon Age content we've ever seen. And so just all the way around, I feel like BioWare did a much better job of managing my expectations for what Veilguard was going to provide. I knew there were only going to be 3 decisions. I knew nothing I did in Origins or Dragon Age 2 was actually going to matter. I knew a lot of the things that were going to be issues going into it. And so it made it much easier to just kind of sit back and be along for the ride, as opposed to hyping myself up and having all these expectations about what kind of experience I was going to get. Let me reiterate one more time though, that doesn't mean Veilguard is a better game than Dragon Age 2. My perspective of Dragon Age 2 has kind of matured over the years. I was able to take a step back, say, okay, this wasn't what I wanted, but now let me look at it as it is. And when you look at Dragon Age 2 as it is, without any of those expectations going in, I feel like it's a much different experience. The way that Varric serves as a narrator throughout the entire game is super, super cool. It's a storytelling mechanic that I really haven't seen in another game before, and he's an incredible character along with Cassandra. I really enjoy the way that the game develops them in preparation for Inquisition. I've said before, I believe Dragon Age 2 has the best representation of the Qunari that we have seen in the entire series, and the Arishok arguably is the best villain in the entire series. Of course, you could argue that Loghain is better, but honestly, I think I prefer the Arishok. I think Arishok to me is the top villain that BioWare has been able to produce for this series. So honestly, there's a lot to love. And then of course, we can't forget about Isabella. Absolutely one of my favorite characters in the series, one of my favorite romances all time. Just great, great character design. And so all the way around, there's a lot to love about Dragon Age 2. It was hard for me to see that the first time I played it. And so that's why it was much easier for me to enjoy my experience with Veilguard. So I hope that all makes sense. I felt like I saw multiple comments about this, so I want to just go ahead and provide some clarity. I do plan to do a couple more videos regarding Veilguard. You all keep telling me there's this art book that shows a lot of amazing things that they could have done. So I'm going to look at that and see if I have thoughts on it. I also keep hearing you all talk about the secret scene at the end and say that that ruins a lot of things. I don't agree, so we're going to make a video about that as well. Let me know down in the comments if there's any other videos related to Veilguard that you all would like to see, and I'll see you all in the next video. Take care.